At one time, a railway ran through these parts. But like across much of Nova Scotia and Canada, where there were abandoned railways, they've become multi-use recreational trails enjoyed by just so many people. This here is the Rum Runners Trail, and I'm picking it up in Mahone Bay, though you can start in Lunenburg and head all the way into Halifax. There are lots of ways to take on this trail. You could hike it over multiple days. You could walk your favorite parts. I'm choosing to tackle this trail on my bike so I can see as much as possible today, which I guess makes my walkabout a rideabout. The Rum Runners trail system is actually made up of a number of trails connecting Lunenburg to Halifax. These include the Bay to Bay Trail, the Dynamite Trail, which I'm traveling on out of Mahone Bay, the Chester Connection, the Aspatagan Trail, the St. Margaret's Bay, and the BLT Trail. It then connects onto the Chain of Lakes trail system, which will take you into Peninsula Halifax. One of the great things about traveling the South Shore by this trail rather than by road is you get to see sights and views that only people who traveled on the railway would ever have seen. The railway along this line was the Halifax and Southwestern Railway, or HSW. It was created in 1901 after a previous plan to build a railway from Halifax to Yarmouth fell apart. For a long time, it was a very curvy route along the South Shore, and really largely remained that way. So locals would call the railway the Hellish Slow and Wobbly Railway. Before this company, there were other companies which had built parts of a rail line, but it wasn't until 1904 that this portion was built connecting it onto Halifax, and not until 1906 that the first train reached the main station. This is Martin's River, such a beautiful spot. It's also where I leave the Dynamite Trail and I join the Chester Connection Trail. So from here, I'm headed on in search of gold. At numerous points along the trail, you can duck off and head to the shoreline, which isn't that far away most of the time. There are beaches, harbors, stores, places to get your bike fixed, restaurants, and nice places to stay the night if you want to take a few days for this trail and really take in the towns, parks, and villages along the way. One of the places this trail comes close to is Oak Island. This is one of many places where the trail crosses Highway 3. Now I could rejoin the trail on the other side, but I'm going to take a quick visit to Oak Island, so I'm picking up the highway at this point. The access to Oak Island isn't far from here off the Rum Runners Trail. It's an island full of mystery and myth. So this is Crandall Point, which is the entrance to Oak Island. It's closed at the moment to visitors, but in the summer you can come here for tours of the gold hunting operations. It's actually one of 350 islands in Mahone Bay, but this is the one that's captured the public's imagination. Treasure hunters have searched for gold here since the 1700s. There have been rumors that everything from Templar Knight's treasure to Captain Kidd's buried gold is somewhere on this island. Even Marie Antoinette's jewels were alleged to have been buried here, but nothing has been found, despite the island having been dug up repeatedly looking for some kind of clue as to what may lie beneath. There have also been numerous plays and books written about the island and its mysteries. Well, I made my way to Chester Basin, which is a little bit southwest of Chester. It was settled in 1760, and there are about 2,000 residents here. Now that number increases in the summer because it's a popular place for sailing, and people move here to their summer cottages. When the railway was here, it made its connection to Halifax at Africville, and then on to a station at North Street, which was part of the Intercolonial Railway. Even though CN took over the line in 1906, it remained separate from the Halifax to Montreal line until much later on, when Canadian National was taken over by the government and nationalized in 1918. CN was able to improve the service. Now, if you're familiar with Halifax, you will know of the rail cut, a deep area of the south end cut into the rock to allow trains to get to the south end terminal. That was part of the terminal construction in the south end in 1920, and at that point, this rail line began to go right into that station and connect onto Montreal. This is Chester's train station. Well, at least it was Chester's train station when people heard the "all aboard" yelled here. It was built in 1905. There's lots of great things to explore inside, including an exhibit on Oak Island. These days, this building is home to the Chester Municipal Heritage Society. They have a craft store here and provide all kinds of helpful travel information to people passing by on the trail. On Fridays from May to October, the lawn around this station fills with produce, fish, flowers, and more as the Chester Farmers and Artisans Market takes over. Tuesday and Wednesdays, the Heritage Society runs craft events. There's a lot that goes on here, and it's well worth checking it out. This railway was incredibly important. Highways were slow and cumbersome. There certainly weren't any 100 series highways, so journeys took a long time. This is another spot you can duck off the Rum Runners Trail for an adventure. Graves Island Provincial Park is just down this road, and there are so many different things you can do there, from swimming to hiking and of course camping. And it's because of the camping that it's really popular with multi-day hikers and cyclists along this trail. Won't you be mine? Feel the sunshine. This railway served as a business link, but also as a connection to steamship services running out of Yarmouth and Halifax. Aside from the passenger traffic, this line was really important for freight. Oil and gasoline was delivered to community terminals along this line. A booming lumber industry, including the construction of what would become Bowater Mersey in 1929, and a military base in Shelburne that opened in World War II, were also contributors to the success of this line. This is East River, and this is where the Chester Connector Trail ends and the Aspatagan Trail begins. Now, many cyclists will actually choose to hit the road here and follow the 329. That goes through places like Blandford and Bayswater, all the way around to Hubbard's. There are some beautiful ocean views, but today I'm going to stick to the trail. The last passenger train to run on this line was October 25th, 1969. And by the 1990s, even freight service was starting to wane with the introduction of better highways. The Louisiana Pacific Mill here at East River was one of the last freight customers on the CN line, and so, with a lack of traffic, the end of the train line was coming. The tracks were pulled up in the 1990s, and its life as a recreational corridor began. The Louisiana Pacific Mill here at East River is one of those almost unknown Nova Scotia businesses. They make wood fiber-based siding under the Can XL brand for the world market. The mill recently changed hands and will no longer be owned by Louisiana Pacific, but the product and the brand will remain. Louisiana Pacific has been operating the mill since 1967, and the product they make these days is a siding for homes and other businesses that basically presses wood chips into hardboard of various sizes and shapes. This is another one of those beautiful spots that you can duck off to along the Aspatagan Trail, the Rum Runners Trail. This is Meisner's Beach, and it's a protected beach under provincial law. If you follow the road rather than the trail, the Aspatagan Loop includes views of Little and Big Tancook Islands. You can take a ferry to those islands from back in Chester. On the loop, there's also a memorial to the victims of the Swiss air disaster. And you'll find some of the filming locations for the popular 1990s Black Harbor TV series. There are also many popular scuba diving locations around the coast. Here in Hubbards is where the Aspatagan Trail ends and the St. Margaret's Bay Trail begins. It's another 32 kilometers from here on to Tantallon, which is where I'm headed. Now this railway, well, the tracks were taken up in 1996, and that's when the recreational trail was born. If you want to learn more about the history of the railway along the South Shore, the Halifax and Southwestern Railway Museum in Lunenburg has done a lot of work to ensure people don't forget about the history of this line and the importance it had in life for Nova Scotians living and working on the South Shore. Across the bay here in Hubbards is an institution, the Shore Club. They've been serving lobster dinners there since 1936. Prince Charles and Lady Diana even enjoyed a meal there in 1983 during their visit to Nova Scotia. And since 1946, people have been dancing until the wee hours every Saturday night in what is perhaps Nova Scotia's last great dance hall. Along this trail there are beaches you can duck off to. You really could spend days traveling this trail, spending time at beaches and in towns along the way. There are many accommodation options up and down the trail, from campgrounds to resorts and bed and breakfasts that make it possible. This is Queensland Beach, and it's probably one of the most popular beaches for swimming in all Nova Scotia. And the reason is, it's nice and sunny and warm here, well, in the summer anyway. The water's nice and the surf is very calm, making it for a very safe place to come swimming. Now on a hot summer day, this parking lot can get really full with cars. The good news is if you're hiking or biking the trail, you don't need to worry about that. I mentioned the connection of the Bowater-Mersey Paper Company to this rail line. For many years, it was an important freight customer on the line. It was founded as the Mersey Paper Company in 1929 by Isaac Walton Killam, a name known for the Children's Hospital in Halifax. It was named for the Mersey River near Liverpool. The company was sold in 1956 to Bowater, and its power generation assets along the rivers in Nova Scotia were sold to what would become Nova Scotia Power. The forest lands the company controlled in western Nova Scotia were vast. The road next to the trail here is called the Bowater-Mersey Road. It continues up to forest lands once controlled by the paper mill. Next to the Bowater-Mersey Road is Mill Lake. Now Mill Lake is part of Nova Scotia Power's electricity generation system for the province. There are actually 3 turbines here. There's 2 up at the end of the lake and there's 1 further down. The system was built in 1920, and it was the first hydroelectric system to provide electricity to residential customers, and those customers were in Halifax. Interesting thing, when it was first built, this was all manually operated, but these days, the whole system is run remotely. This trail is part of the provincial Blue Route. The Blue Route is a cycling network which connects communities across roads and trails that are suitable for cycling. There's more being added to the route all the time. The goal is to create a network of bicycle-safe routes for citizens and tourists, covering over 3,000 kilometers across Nova Scotia. Well, after about 80 kilometers along the Rum Runners Trail, I've made it to my destination, the Bike and Bean here in Tantallon. You know, this used to be the French Village train station. It was built around 1900 and was welcoming people who would travel along this rail line. These days, this bike shop and this cafe, well, it welcomes hikers and cyclists who take on this trail. The remnants of the old rail line are everywhere around here. You can actually continue about another 30 kilometers through Beachville and on to Peninsula Halifax. But this is where I'm going to stop. A few weeks back, I checked out another trail near here, the Blue Mountain Trail. That's after the break. Won't you be mine? Feel the sunshine. Having arrived in the Halifax area, I've made my way to the north side of the Blue Mountain Birch Cove Wilderness area. It's decidedly a work in progress, with many informal trails. But the most popular takes you to the highest point on the Halifax-Chebucto Peninsula, the summit of Blue Mountain. This is by no means a long hike, only a few kilometers in length. But the journey to the summit starts here on this old Barrett logging road. There's a constantly changing mix of landholders in this area. Barrett Lumber owns some land, though in 2019 the municipal government purchased parcels from them for the park. Barrett allows people to hike this logging road, which provides access to the Blue Mountain summit. Other land is owned by the province, various private interests, and some is intended to be sold to the Nova Scotia Nature Trust. Governments and community organizations are still trying to assemble all the land that's required for the envisioned Blue Mountain Birch Cove Wilderness area. It's a large assembly, and the reality is there are competing plans. Right where I'm walking now, there's envisioned to be a highway, Highway 113, and there's a proposed quarry. There are also forestry operations. Most of those things have fallen by the wayside, but land assembly is still ongoing. And if all the land is assembled as envisioned, this, the Blue Mountain Birch Cove Wilderness Area, would become the largest urban wilderness park in all of North America. The Friends of Blue Mountain Birch Cove Lake Society was formed in 2018. Their goal has been to formalize the process of acquiring lands to make this park a reality and to get the trails built. That after 30 years of this process being nudged along by community members. There are two ways up to the summit. This is the more popular one, which is more like a woods trail. There are no official trails in this wilderness area, but it is a popular hiking destination, and many of the unofficial trails are reasonably well trodden these days. But be sure to keep track of where you are. You don't want to get turned around as night is approaching. There are plans for a formal trail system through this park over time, one that would reach all the way from here to somewhere around Susie's Lake near the Bears Lake Business Park. Despite the fact that these trails are unofficial in nature, they are navigated by people year-round who have the ability to walk these sometimes challenging conditions. And the fact that these trails are marked and managed at all is due to the hard work of volunteers who are trying to ensure that this place becomes a public wilderness area for the future. It's not that nothing has been done. The municipality designated the proposed outer boundary of the park quite a few years ago. Land has been acquired. There is a conceptual plan for formal trails in this area. But that plan is on hold, and while it has received conditional approval from the provincial government, it's awaiting a trails organization to take the lead, and of course, funding to support it. With the size of this park, it's a big undertaking. There have also been some threats to the park in the form of industrial development along the edges, especially towards the Susie's Lake end of the park, including the sale of some land within the proposed park boundary, and of course, the proposed highway. The size of the proposed wilderness area is about 4,400 acres. In context, that's about the same size as all of peninsular Halifax. And one of the most popular destinations at the moment in the park is this trek to the summit. I talked about the Highway 113 proposal, and that's what this sign is about. People are very worried about this. The proposed highway, which in fairness is really on the back burner now, would come right through this area that I'm standing now. I mean, you can imagine 150 meters wide, a highway cutting right through this wilderness area. It certainly got people concerned. Wow, what a view. This is the Blue Mountain Summit. People have trekked here for years. The view, almost unlimited. And with that, we've reached the highest point on the Chebucto Peninsula. There are lots of ways to explore parks and trails, by foot, on bike, in the winter by cross-country ski and snowshoe. Whether your next walkabout takes you from town to town along well-established trails, or up a mountaintop in your backyard along old logging roads, just remember what J.R.R. Tolkien once said, "Not all those who wander are lost."